Welcome to the Lymphedema channel. We love interviewing inspiring people in the lymphedema community. And I've been sort of stalking this person for a while because her story deserves to be told. And you need to know about her organization if you don't already. Amy Rivera, it's so nice to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's our pleasure. And you are the executive director of the Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema Foundation. How'd you come up with a name like that, by the way?
Well, long story. I was at a radio show and we were talking about my lymphedema, and they talked about what a fighter I was. And one of their co-hosts said, well, let's go with ninjas. And then I kind of laughed at it. And I started as a Facebook group as ninjas, and it just caught on. And then my husband has a black belt and my son is in Taekwondo. So we just kept with ninjas.
Well, it works. And it does say that you're a fighter. In fact, if you want to go and visit the website, those of you who are watching, it's winourfight.org. And so what would you say that fight is?
That fight is when I first started this, I was fighting for myself. I was fighting for my voice. I was fighting for my life, in essence. And then afterwards, after I found myself in this journey, I realized I was fighting for everyone else as well, because we all had the same voice, the same story, the same journey. We may be affected differently, but at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same fight. So I kept Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema because I'd realized that this was our fight, not just my fight.
So people understand that you didn't always start out where you are today, which is a very powerful place and it's inspiring, but you had a long journey to even get a diagnosis. I read from your bio that you have primary lymphedema, but didn't find out for some 30 years.
Yes, I was born in 1981. And the reason I say my year is not to date me, but I was born in 1981, and it affected my entire right side of my body. And it was visible from the moment my mother had me. However, I didn't get diagnosed with primary lymphedema until 2013. So that's why I say 1981 to 2013, because it took me that long for a doctor to even listen.
So for those of you watching, maybe you haven't been diagnosed yet. How was this presenting? You said it was the entire right side of your body. Was it swelling?
It
What
was swelling.
pain?
So when I was 3 days old, all the swelling in my right side of my body started to go away, except for my leg. That was the only area that the swelling did not go away. And as I grew as a child, as an adolescent, teenager, and adult, my leg grew as well. And they just said, oh, take a diuretic. It's just water. For some reason, you just have water in your leg. Well, we knew it wasn't just water, because I would feel really sluggish. I wasn't as active as a normal teenage girl. As a matter of fact, my parents nicknamed me Droopy Drawers. They didn't know what was wrong with me. They just thought I was being lazy. And now I'm so sorry, they didn't know, which is fine. If you don't know, you don't know. But I wasn't a very active teenager. And if I wasn't in pain, I was tired. And I didn't know why I was tired all the time.
And
So
because you weren't diagnosed, it's not like you could do anything to manage it. I speak with a lot of primary lymphedema patients who in their teens started wearing compression garments and, helped to forestall some of the progression of the disease because they were managing it. But you can't manage something you don't have. You don't know you have it.
exactly. And that was the thing, when someone would come to me, well, why didn't you wear compression? Why didn't you do this and this? I didn't know to. I just simply didn't know.
So there in 1981, there wasn't Google. You couldn't go to the doctor of the internet and see other legs that looked like yours. When did you finally have your aha moment that led to a diagnosis?
I went to the doctor and I said, I need to figure out what's going on with me. My leg is just getting bigger and bigger. And he said, it's just swelling. You're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 35. There's nothing we can do. There's no research out there. There's just, it is what it is. And that devastated me. Devastated me. I had children. I didn't feel like I was living my life. And I got so angry, I fired him. He was my first doctor, my second doctor I fired. And when I went back to work, I started Googling the names that I was called. And I saw all these legs that looked like mine. And I realized, okay, there are people out there who are like me, and they have this L name, because at the time I didn't know what lymphedema was, this L name with it, but I've never been to this country. I never had this parasite. Why do I look like I have this parasite when I was born with it? So I thought at first I was born with a parasite. I thought something was wrong with me. And as I continued to Google the names, I started to find doctors all over the world who works on patients with lymphedema. The first doctor I Skyped with was Dr. Becker. And I don't even know if she remembers. That's how long ago it was. And she said, it looks like that, but I can't diagnose you, you know, and explained to me the whole series of what would happen for diagnosis and this and that. And then it led me to find a doctor in Chicago. And I was floored that there was a doctor in Chicago 4 hours away from me. I was floored. How did I not know this? You know, and how did the medical industry not know this? And I was shocked.
So let's talk about how that made you feel when you finally realized that this had a name that could be treated. How'd you feel?
I felt like I won the lottery because I finally had a name to what it was I had, that I thought I had. But then when I read There's No Cure, I felt like my winnings just were ripped away from me. However, I still held on to the fact that there was a name. That means there were other individuals out there like myself. I no longer felt alone that very moment. So even though my winnings got ripped away, I felt at ease and at peace because I knew I was on the right track. You know,
You've just encouraged so many people, and that's why we do these interviews, because I firmly believe, and Lymph Press believes, that if people know they're not alone, they can get through anything. You can link arms with other people who have gone before you, or you can encourage those that are coming up behind you. And it makes even the painful things in life more meaningful. And you then became a literal ninja when it comes to fighting lymphedema, first for yourself. And you said something else. You said, and for my sons.
no, for others. And then my daughter.
Your daughter. Okay. So it was, were you concerned that since you had primary lymphedema that you would pass it on and that there would be other family members?
I had no idea that I could have passed it on at the time, and I'd already had my daughter. And after I did all my research, I found out that it does run genetically in my mother's side of the family, and my daughter does have lipolymphedema. So she has the lipedema component, and then she has the lymphedema component.
And how much of a blessing is it that, first of all, you were able to get right on that for your daughter? Because we know if you start managing things early, it can really help later on in life and forestall the progression of these diseases. So what did you do next? Now you have a diagnosis. Did you immediately start using compression? What was your first step?
I got on a plane and went to see this doctor. So I went to Chicago. It was a day trip. I went up there. I met the doctor. That was the scariest moment of my life, I thought. But it was just the beginning of my reduction journey. I remember shaking like this and my palms sweating. And she said, okay, let's look at your leg. And I wanted to say no immediately. I didn't let people look at my leg. I barely looked at my leg. And when she started looking at it, and you're sitting there waiting and you're thinking, what is she thinking? What's going on in her head? She
Mhm.
goes, yes, this is lymphedema. And I would say, it's safe to say you're at a stage 4. You're at an elephantitis stage. And here's what we can do. And she started talking to me about compression, bandaging, MLD, and pumps. And then she told me about the surgeries and what she wanted to do for the procedures. She was a wealth of information. For that time, she literally was. She gave me everything I needed to start that journey with. And 4 months later, I'm in Chicago having a lymph node transfer. It was about 4 months later. That was the one and only surgery that went through so easily. All my other ones were continuously, a fight. But that
Yeah.
was the only procedure that actually went through without any problems. Was a lymph
So
node.
for those that are watching that are like lymph node transfer, who's a good candidate for that? Now, I know you're not offering medical advice, but you had stage 4 elephantiasis, lymph node transfer. What was it like, and what was the immediate result?
So because it was still so new, I knew I was going in as a guinea pig. All these procedures, I still know I'm going in as a guinea pig. And what I tell people is I do what's best for my health and what I feel is appropriate for me. At the time, she thought it was appropriate to have a lymph node transfer where they took, I don't know if you can see, they took lymph nodes from my neck area and they put them in my right groin area where I was missing I'm missing most of my nose and my leg, but majority of them were missing in that groin area. And what happened was she meant well. She meant to soften the tissue, and they did. I saw maybe a 20% reduction in circumference. And my dead skin, some of us who have that elephantitis stage, we have that dark skin, that purplish skin color, that started to flake off. So that was showing me that I was getting new blood flow, new flow going. And again, it softened, but it did not reduce to the point where I thought it should. That's because I had a lot of solid in my leg, and that solid's from the years of that lymph fluid just sitting there.
Mm.
Now, back in 2013, we weren't really talking about samples, the protein lipectomy removal. We weren't talking about all these other transfers. This was one of the first. And I knew going in, it could work, it could not work. But it didn't work not because of what the physician did. It just didn't work because I did it backwards, but I didn't know that at the time. I
So
should
when
have
you say
had
backwards, explain. Yeah.
Yeah, so I should have had the sample that I just had with Dr. Granzo. I should have had that done first to remove all that junk out of my leg and then go in and see where the transfers could be placed. That's what should have happened for me. Not everyone's that way. I know I have a friend who had the transfers first and then she's going to go in and do that. Everyone's lymphatic system's so different, and our bodies are so different, and the type of lymphedema is so different. It's not a one size fits all disease, and it's not a one size fits all treatment. And
That's a
that's what I
really
tell.
that's a really important point. And also, don't give up. If one thing didn't work, you didn't say, oh, well, I got a 20% reduction, I'll just settle for that. You kept going.
And I almost did stop. I almost did. Because the recovery was so traumatic for me, not painfully, emotionally traumatic for me. I'm a self-sufficient person, and I had to depend on everyone to go to the restroom, to take a shower. I couldn't bend my leg for months. So I had a JP drain here. I removed it myself, and I'm a nurse, and I knew what to do, but it was so traumatic. I had to come home early from Chicago. I had to, take care of my children. And so I finished my treatment via Zoom with my doctor. And she was amazing. Nothing she did but it was an emotional roller coaster for me. I didn't expect to go through that.
Right. And being self-sufficient and then being dependent, you do weigh in your mind, is it worth it to go through and have another procedure, try it again? I'm counting on more downtime here, but what's the alternative, Amy?
That was exactly the conversation I had with myself. What is the alternative? The alternative was not living my life with my children. The alternative was being in that wheelchair 24/7. The alternative was not leading the pack, not passing the torch. And in order to do that, I had to be strong. And there was many times where I wanted to quit. And I just, I couldn't.
We're so glad you didn't. So many people in the lymphedema community are so glad you didn't. And that is not to minimize what you went through and how hard it was. But on the other side of it, you're helping so many people. So your particular journey led you to, how many surgeries have you had?
3. I still need, so I'm technically still recovering from my last surgery in 2018. Dr. Granzo was very clear on how long this would take. I just didn't believe him. and I tell him this all the time. He was very honest with the entire process from the beginning to the end and where we are today. And I'm still reducing, I'm still changing, and my whole body is changing because of all the bone structure it was so wide. Now I want to use the word flaking. It's starting to like shed. And so that debris is still in my body. So that causes inflammation. So sometimes I flare up from that bone debris, but my ankle and my foot is starting to kind of go down again. In the beginning, I had to wear like a 7 wide, 7.5. I'm down to a 7 regular and in a shoe. So it's still shaping. So I'm not ready for another procedure yet, but when I am, I will do that. Yeah.
So stage 4 elephantiasis. And I think I've learned, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you are stage 4, you still are stage 4, but you can reduce so it doesn't look. I have one patient that I've interviewed recently, and she's still stage 4. Both of her legs look exactly the same now, which is such a great outcome.
Right. That's a blessing. That's a
It
blessing.
is. And it's about managing it.
It is. It is. And I will always be a stage 4. I can't reverse that. But what I did is reversed the circumference, and I reversed. I'm at a stage 1 treatment, level ground. I'm there where I can treat it and manually keep it treated with minimal maintenance. And
So
that
awesome.
I'm okay with. We all know I'm not going to be a leg model. Well, I kind of am now for
Yes,
lymphedema.
you are.
I'm not going to be like this leg model where I don't care. I don't care what my legs look like circumference wise as far as where they are now. I cared about not being in pain, and I cared about my quality of life more than I got used to people staring at me. So it doesn't bother me. They look at me and say, well, your leg is a little swollen. Oh, this is nothing, So I really just am happy that I'm pain free.
So when people go to winourfight.org, what kind of resources can they find through your organization?
Well, they first, when they go there, I thought long and hard about this when I developed this organization, and I wanted people to understand they can reach me. I want them to know that at the end of the day, no matter what my title is, I'm Amy and I have lymphedema too. And I want to connect with them on every level. So when they go to the website, the first thing they see is my story. So they understand that I'm an active member on the board. I'm an active member with the organization, and I'm still an active lymphedema thriver. Secondly, they'll see a list of physicians or therapists that they can, for resources. There's facts that, about lymphedema or lymphatic health. And there's an application for application assistance, and our events. I built a community that I didn't have. And that's what I want them to know when they go to the site. Is it's a community site. It's different than the colors of lymphedema. It's different than all the other organizations, and I understand that. But I wanted someone to come to my site and say, I can fight too. And that was the message I wanted them to see.
I love that. You know, I sometimes shake my head and say, we're not competing with each other.
Not at all.
We are all about the same thing, raising awareness, giving people hope, offering help. And the more that are doing it, the better. We're not
Absolutely.
trying to carve out or stake our claim, you know? And yeah, if anybody out there wants to know about LymphoPress, I would love to help you. We love helping people get their quality of life back, but we don't require that the people we interview for this channel use the LymphoPress, but just have a story that can encourage the community. And so we're so grateful. For someone out there watching who may be a bit discouraged, what would you say to them, Amy?
It's okay to be discouraged. It's okay to be where you are, as long as you understand how to move out of it. It's okay to accept the feelings that you feel because it's very normal. Don't allow anyone to make you feel you're less than because you're discouraged. We all get discouraged, but know that you have a community, you have a brother, and you have a sister of lymphedema and lymphedema that can help you walk that path with you. And that is why I'm here, because I too have been discouraged and I didn't have anyone to walk with. And so I'm here to walk with whoever needs to be walked with.
Well, we're so thrilled to walk with you and shine this light. And you have an open invitation to come back anytime you want and uplift the community, share what you're learning. We do monthly lymphedema patient roundtables as well, and we often have special guest panelists. We would love to have you be a part of it. We honor you for the work you're doing, and we thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much. And I have to say, LymphoPress was the first company to reach out to me and allow me to share my lymphedema story. The very first company. Eric reached out to me years ago, and I remember meeting him, and I instantly loved his energy. I loved who he was. And I'm forever thankful that you guys allowed me to share my story years ago for the first time. I had never done that.
I have goosebumps. See, I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, it was a very private event. It wasn't showcased. It was just something private, and it was the first time, and he gave me that opportunity, and that's really what allowed me to learn how to share my story, was through Eric. So,
well, Eric Ansart, who is the president of LymphoPress USA, is an amazing individual. In fact, those flowers behind me are from
yeah.
him and his wife. They are also dear friends of mine, and sent me a show of support after I just went through a recent difficult time. And I think what it comes down to is genuine caring. You
Yes.
know, genuine caring. We care about people. We care about making people's lives better. And I'm so excited because you're a powerful storyteller, and sharing your story is helping so many people. Amy Rivera, I'm a huge fan. We look forward to having you back many, many times. And however we can support you and Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema, winourfight.org, we're in. Count LymphoPress in, okay?
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. And by the way, if you know someone who has a wonderful lymphedema story that you feel should be shared, send them my way, bviola@medsoulsupplier.com. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you've been encouraged, because that is our aim. Have a great day, everyone. Bye, Amy.
Bye.